This is Metropole Television. This is Business AM, the 7 AM edition. Good. Now, we are joined by Judge Munga this morning as we tell you exactly what is happening around the economy as regards the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, even when companies make announcements, they're pretty much related to what is happening in the economy right now. Now, for those people who didn't know, therefore, yesterday was April Fool's Day, but it was the same day, therefore, that the new CEO for Safaricom, Ndegwa, was actually taking over at that position. But as this goes on, now we do know that the government is actually also trying to cushion members of the economy from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, because we do know now that VAT was actually adjusted now, mobile phones and your airtime purchases and everything really in the telecommunication sector is also getting affected. And that's the first time that Ndegwa now comes in to take over at Safaricom. All right, George, this is the question that anybody is really asking, therefore. We seem to have handed Safaricom just an olive branch during COVID-19 pandemic. That look, you command 60+% of our market, and we pretty much told people transact online. So even when the government is actually announcing these VAT cuts from 16% to 14%, on the other side, Safaricom's business is also going to grow exponentially now, as we do know of it. So I do not think, because the question is, should they worry, therefore, that they're also going to get affected by these cuts? But from the way of things, that should not be the worry for the new guy, and there goes coming in.
I think Safaricom has a very big latitude to assist the economy.
Yes.
In this time, government reduced VAT by 2%. That's a very marginal decrease, percentile decrease, considering the revenue quantums. If you look at maybe the airtime you purchase or the mobile data you use, maybe the difference will be something maybe in the tune of 10 shillings or 20 shillings thereabout.
Yes.
But Safaricom has a latitude to assist the common mwananchi or the population to navigate this period. One, you realize that most companies have resorted to what we call remote working remotely. That is, employees can now work remotely. They can do teleconferences. And how do you do this? You do this through technology. And you realize that Safaricom commands over about 64% of the market share, especially in data. And therefore, they can come in and assist the economy. I mean, reduce the costs of some of this internet bandwidth,
yes,
so that at least as many people as possible can afford this to transact in this space. Remember, what goes into your telecommunication expenses is, one, there is a VAT element, there is the excise duty, of course there are the Safaricom costs, and then there is their markup. So if Safaricom can at least leverage on the market share and their business model,
yes,
so that they reduce their markup and their costs, especially in the bandwidth market space, so that every other person can easily afford internet or can easily afford data,
yes,
and can still push the economy even during this period that we are experiencing the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yes.
I think they have a headway, or they have leverage to do this for the economy.
Yes,
exactly.
But we saw the other day, we saw the President Uhuru Kenyatta launch the 4G loan network in conjunction with Google. Someone asked you though, like, should his focus therefore, because now the economy is really trying to learn now on exactly how to address these challenges that we're getting faced by right now. Is his big focus going to be, wow, we get to address the internet challenge within the economy. That's where the space is right now. Because as we do know of it, it's when they're trying to expand their 4G network coverage. And if you saw, we're actually having these loan services now because our 4G coverage is that poor to the extent that we need help from the loans. Yes.
Exactly. I don't know how far the government went with that announcement. I don't know how it has been operationalized to date.
Yes.
But I believe if it was to be operationalized, then it will have quite some good impact into the economy. As I was telling you, most company, even myself, most of my staff are working from home.
Yes.
And therefore, any decrease in the costs of data will have a direct impact in my cost and every other business across the country. So I would want to see how a government operationalizes what the president announced the other day.
Yes.
And some of these big telecommunication companies like Safaricom will come in handy to try and operationalize this program. So I think now it is the time that private sector and public sector needs to work hand in hand,
yes,
at least to hold the economy for this period. The forecasts have stated that probably we will have this for the next 2, 3, 4 months. So at least all of us need to come together, both private sector and public sector, to try and hold this economy up to that time.
Yes. I want you to talk to me about, I know we saw when we had our first case within the economy on exactly how Safaricom share actually did jump. They were doing from around 33, now they went actually to 25 shillings per share. With the news, therefore, that the economy is supposed to sort of move online, transact more digitally. We did see what the Central Bank of Kenya was saying, that we got to quarantine this money for some time before we release it. So the only thing that is really, in terms of availability, is digital money. Do you think, therefore, that for any investor who's looking at it will say that the best place to go to now in terms of investing your money is Safaricom, because they've been given this olive branch where you pretty much don't have to worry about their share prices anymore, because on the other side, they are running the economy even more now, and we didn't know they were even before we got into the COVID-19 pandemic.
I think COVID-19, what COVID-19 as the opportunities that COVID-19 has presented to us are more directed towards telecommunication companies.
Yes.
Because we can't realize that there are things that we can do remotely. There are things we don't necessarily need to meet in a space, all of us together,
yes,
for us to discuss business.
Yes.
We can do teleconference. So for any long-term investor, and given the fundamentals, the fundamentals of Safaricom, I think it is a counter that any long-term investor would want to look at. But for speculators, maybe not now, because the share prices currently are depressed, and they're likely to be that way for maybe the next quarter or two.
Yes.
But for any long-term investor, those are the counters that they need to start focusing on, and this is the time to buy in.
Yes.
I know most investors are a bit shy now, because they don't know what this pandemic is, how this pandemic is likely to pan out in the next quarter or the next 2 quarters. But you saw what Kirubi did with Santa
CK actually won in and got 49.99%,
exactly,
and he's actually going back for more as well.
Exactly.
Yes,
This is the time to look at some of these counters if you are long-term investors. I mean, a long-term investor. But for speculative investor, maybe not now.
But that doesn't Safaricom present itself strongly in the market for even a speculative investor? I mean, you can see when we're talking about let's talk about internet. They are the ones who are there. Let's talk about go online, transact. So I do not think that pretty much what we should be thinking about, it should not be looking at the share price, where it's doing at 35 right now, the lowest we've seen it so far in just a couple of years. But he knows very well that over the other side as well, even when the guys are talking about cut VAT back to 14%, but over the other side, volumes are going to increase. Yeah, the bottom lines of Safaricom are going to be even better now. So is it not a good time for even this speculative investor to say, yes, I have money, I can't take it anywhere right now because the way the economy is, but Safaricom presents itself as a better option?
Agree with you. If you look at the business model of Safaricom,
yes,
they are more or less moving from voice, which is now quite competitive,
yes,
to that Twitter to money transfer, that is M-Pesa, and even going across our borders. So if you look at their share price currently, then you probably this is the lowest that it has been,
yes,
and therefore it's likely to go to go higher in the next 1, 2, or 3 quarters. So I agree with you that even for speculative investor, that's a counter that you'd want to look at.
Yes.
But the share prices are likely to start going high, maybe from the month of June. And if you look at the revenue trends of Safaricom over the years, I think there's no year that they have recorded less than 6% growth.
Yes.
And even their dividend payout ratios are quite good. So I think any investor coming into the economy, coming into NSE, would want to focus on Safaricom. Safaricom count as one of the best counters that
that you can actually get into. Therefore, would you say that, in your own opinion, therefore, for a new CEO who's coming into the company, yes, he's been around, he's done exactly how we do business around here. Does this present itself as the most challenging time for him to come in and try and take over the Safaricom's top seat?
It's the most challenging time, but also challenging times comes with a lot of opportunities.
Yes.
I think well, I was just speaking with some of my business associates the other day, and they were telling me that there are companies that are raking in huge profits now. Some of the companies are in telecommunication, because now most things have moved to internet, and then pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
So in any pandemic or in any situation, any bad situation, there are companies that will definitely make money. So even as Ndego is coming in these challenging times present huge opportunities for him if he strategizes well for the future.
Yes.
So I expect Safaricom not to see any dip in revenues for Safaricom, but to see even higher percentage growth.
Yes.
Going into 2020, 2021.
Yes, and
exactly.
You do expect that the share prices are actually going to recover in due course, isn't it? Yes. And so lastly, therefore, we've seen the bigger quarters at NSE, and I want us to really attach this to the next story that we have this morning. We've seen bigger quarters now. It's now actually cheaper to buy a beer from EAB, to buy a share, from EABL than it is actually to buy their beer, which costs for around 220. Now we're talking about 150 something for just one share. Do you expect, therefore, that because we do know very well that our boost is generally just covered by foreign investors, that we do expect that it's only until now, until we start talking about us figuring our COVID-19 pandemic situation in the country, which is not getting better, because every day we do expect incremental numbers. Now we're talking about 81. Is it only until that time, therefore, should we expect for us to see a recovery in the way that our boost is looking right now?
I think most investors have been shy to invest in some of these counters, and it's understandable. You realize 2019 was not a very good year for most companies, and therefore most investors looked at other markets away from Kenya or away from NSE. And you talked about EABL. EABL is likely to take a beating with this COVID-19. I don't know how long it will take, because currently, there are very few meetings, there are very few social gatherings around. So therefore, the companies that are likely to take some beating with this pandemic. But I expect that once this is done, then they'll bounce back into profitability, or into the greener spaces. So my opinion is the NSE is currently experiencing a lull, so to speak, but it will not be that way for long. After this pandemic is over, I know most economies will come up with stimulus programs, and these stimulus programs will definitely impact at the NSE, and we'll start seeing some of these shares rising. It will depend on how the government, the central government, works out its economic policies to even boost the disposable incomes of individuals around the economy, and of course the global economic trends. You realize that you've seen that some of the big economies have taken very huge beatings with this pandemic. And therefore, when they start recovering, maybe investors in those economies will want to focus on the emerging markets, Kenya being one of them. So I focus that maybe in quarter 3, quarter 4 of this year, I will start seeing very good trends at the NSEs, at the NSE, and a very good price trends for some of these counters.
Pretty much, isn't it? I'm going to ask you on exactly what CK did now, because that is also showing exactly what local investors are also thinking about, because it looks as if now is the right time for us to start asking the question, is it time for us to look for ways of improving local investments in our books, because we're seeing exactly what's going on around that area. Now, with that regard, therefore, now we do know that Kenya has passed a new law that is supposed to protect minority shareholders from hostile takeovers. Now, we do know also that the amendment of this act, therefore, it lifts a threshold for company acquisition or sell-out rights for company shareholders involved in a takeover from 50% to 90%. Which means, therefore, for companies that are listed on Nairobi Securities Exchange, the new law will ensure the protection of minority shareholders. Why is this timely, therefore?
Let me just give you a brief on what a majority and a minority shareholder is, so to speak. And let me give a very simple example. If you're holding, we are in a company with you, and I'm holding 51% away from 9%, you become a minority shareholder and a majority shareholder. When the Companies Act was discussed, that is the Companies Act number 17 of 2015, it spoke to this and said that if in case of a merger or an acquisition, if I come in and buy 90% of the shareholding of a particular company, then I can force the minority shareholders sell their shares to me. So that threshold was set at 90%. And that when it came to that is in 2019, Mr. Linda's amendment, that was reversed back to 50%. So that if I walked into your company and bought 50% of your shareholding, then I can force the minority shareholders to sell their shares to me. That was not a very good legislation, especially for the Capital Markets Authority, because then it shifted the power from the minority shareholders, who are the majority sometimes, to now the majority shareholder. You'll find that probably, let me just give you the example of Safaricom. If Vodacom was to come in and buy, at that time, that legislation that I'm talking about, if Vodacom was to come and buy 50% of the shareholding of Safaricom, then they'll force the rest of us, who have maybe 10 shares, 20 shares, to sell their shares to them. This was contested by the CMA, that is Capital Markets Authority, because it presented what we call an asymmetric scenario at the NSE, because you cannot now clearly predict or forecast what will happen if somebody was to come in and buy 50% of shareholding in a company. So that presented a very huge risk for some of the companies that are listed at the Nairobi Securities Exchange. This has now been revised back now to 90%, so that if you wanted to force me to sell to you my shares as a minority shareholder, then you have to buy 90% of the stock in that company, which is quite a high threshold to achieve. So in a sense, this legislation now protects the minority shareholder in any given company, and therefore brings a lot of stability, or some stability, at the Capital Markets Authority. So it's a good legislation. I don't know what the thinking was when Parliament reviewed this in 2019 to lower it from 90% to 50%. Maybe somebody wanted to achieve something.
Isn't it? I mean, we normally see that
because
around.
Of course, that is the time that we saw a few acquisitions coming in, if you can remember. But now that it has been revised back to 90%, which I think is a good thing.
Now, for any minority shareholder, therefore, just before this, does it mean that you have, you had no even way, therefore, to contest anybody telling you that, well, now I do own the company, so you gotta give it to me.
You had no way to contest. If somebody walked in and purchased 51% of the shareholding, or if I had 35%, the way Vodacom has its Safaricom, and I raise it to 51%, then you have no option but to sell to me your shares if I want to. So you had no voice. But 90% now raises the threshold quite high. If you have to acquire, you almost would acquire now all the shares of Safaricom before you can command the minority shareholders.
Pretty much.
So it is something that brings Summit now into the market and brings reason into the market.
Yes. Now, this is exactly what I want to talk to you as well this morning, because it's actually in line with what CK did the other day. Now, we do know that CK actually went in and bought, now he has 49.99% shares holding of Centum. And he actually saying, well, I don't own the company as per se, but I'm going in for more as well. Is that, how do we understand that law as well now within CMA as well, that you can actually be the shareholder, the majority shareholder, but it really doesn't mean that you're going to own that company? Yes.
What it essentially speaks to is that you can be a majority shareholder in a particular company, but still don't have now the right to command the other shareholder. If the other amendment, the amendment 2019 was still holding, then CK would probably just need maybe 2% shares in Centum, and then you would command the rest of the shareholders to do his bidding. But as it is now, you must go up to 90%, and still with the 90%, there are regulations that you must achieve before you can buy the 90% shareholding in such a company. So I think it protects the minority shareholders who are sometimes the majority. If you look at
there could be many, isn't it? But then because you just won and you got that money, you pretty much come and wipe them out, isn't it? Okay, now just quickly before we go to the next one, therefore, what did he tell you, therefore? Because CK could, at this time, therefore, jump into Centum and get that 49.99%. When everybody is saying, well, hold on, man, you don't know. How do we understand that sort of investment?
I think the likes of CK are long-term investors.
Yes.
And you realize that CK has quite a lot of interest in Centum.
Yes.
And he knows the goings around in Centum. So I think him is looking at the longer term.
So we should not look at that and say, well, that is what the market sentiment is.
In this scenario. Him is looking at the longer term. But of course, let me just speak to this.
Yes.
CK, of course, knows the insider information for Centum.
Yes.
The CMA, prohibits insider trading. Yes. But of course, those are knowledge that he has. So I think for him, he's looking at the longer term. And him investing at this time, he's just trying to take advantage of the market, given the market is depressed now, to buy those shares at this time, so that as they appreciate, his paper wealth increases. Yes. So that is what wise investors do.
Which doesn't really speak about whatever is going on in the market right now. All right, just quickly, therefore, as we jump to the last issue this morning. Now we do know that the National Treasury, therefore, has also allowed export processing zones to sell 100% of their produce in the local market, albeit temporarily, countering the earlier law that restrict them to only 20% of the sales. Question being, therefore, because now we do know you can sell 100%. If you're pretty much into exporting, you can change that now and sell into 100%. The other law was just 20% of that. Does that go a long way in sort of cautioning them now during this COVID-19 pandemic? But when you allow that, when the expenditure also in the economy is not that heavy, are you not at a catch-22 point where you're saying, well, we gotta do something for you, but we do know that's the much that we can help? Should have they done more?
I think if you look at the legislation that established the EPZs, the EPZs Authority Act of 1990, the purpose was the main purpose was to boost our exports and therefore increase our FX earnings into the country. That's number 2. And then number 3 is to boost employment, because realize EPZs employ quite a number of people.
Yes.
That there's been mixed results in that, but largely I think they've tried their best in that space. And of course, it was meant to attract FDIs, foreign direct investments. With COVID-19, COVID-19, you realize most economies have closed their borders, so to speak.
Yes,
to what
and
is
so
coming
redirected their
from
expenditures
out,
as
yes.
well. Yes.
So what that means is that, you remember, EPZs are not supposed to sell locally. Previously, there was all the produce was supposed to be sold abroad. Up to 80% of the produce supposed to be for export. So what this pandemic has done to them is to reduce their revenues, or rather to close the revenue streams by 80%.
Yes.
So what the government has done is to try and cushion them during this period by allowing them now to sell their produce locally. So I think this is just a measure to ensure that they stay afloat during this period, so that they don't offload their workforce during this pandemic period.
Yes.
But again, EPZs have a lot of tax breaks. They have so much tax breaks if you look at the Income Tax Act, and if you are to allow them to sell locally for forever, that it did not achieve the purpose that it was supposed to achieve. So what has happened is just to give them a short-term cushion so that they don't stop the operations, and then therefore they don't lay off their workforce. But I believe once this is sorted out, then the previous legislations will just proceed as they were.
Yes. George, I wish we had more time, man. I'm told that we've run out of time this morning. Now, guess what? Take George back to the time when he came into the studio this morning. That is at Metropole TV, at YouTube and Twitter and Facebook as well. We are live. And the good thing is you can take him back and actually get to see his sentiments, especially on the boost, that is the NSE, whether you should go into the market or not, whether if you are a long-term investor, where you should go to. And as we do know, whether it's the best time now for network to take over Safaricom. This is Business AM. We take a short break. Once we come back, we speak to an industry in the public sector, that is the border riders. Now, as we do know, they've been hit also by being told it is now mandatory for you to carry a mask and for your passenger. Is that visible at this time during the COVID-19 pandemic? We do have them in the house this morning once we come back.